I'm Ryan Cook, the chair. We are continuing our hearing from last month, specific to the special permit for Gen 3 RE LLC for 785 Washington Street. Are the applicants present? Yes. Come on up. So just so everyone in the public knows, between Attorney Casavant and ourselves, we had decided to continue because there were still some open questions that we wanted to give the applicant time in all fairness because we just didn't have enough information to be able to make a decision. So the applicant did submit documentation. All of it was uploaded to the servers this week, or end of last week. And then there was another form that was uploaded yesterday? Was there something uploaded, or was it all uploaded last week?
It looked like something was uploaded, the amended special permit. I don't know if it was something.
Yeah, that was it.
Yes.
Okay.
So they did work on getting some of the information that we asked for. So that's the point of this continuation. So, Mr. Casavant, if you want to take over, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Appreciate you for being here. As discussed, we took a lot of the feedback from the board and the abutters, and there was some issues we wanted to address. First, there was a concern with traffic. So to address that, we had a traffic assessment done. That was, we engaged a company to prepare that assessment, which was provided to the board. And if I could, Scott, this is Scott Rogers, he's an engineer. I don't know if you could just briefly just discuss the traffic assessment more intelligently than I can.
So for the record, my name is Scott Rogers from J.K. Woodman Engineering. As Rick had mentioned, the traffic report was prepared by McMahon Associates. And typically, traffic studies, involve a bunch of things. They look at traffic volumes, they look at crash data in the area, they look at trip generation, they look at sight distance, etc. So for the introduction for this, for Washington Street, obviously Route 138 is called an urban minor arterial roadway. There was no crash data recorded in the last 5 years, so that roadway would be considered a safe roadway. There's the driveway themselves, there's 2 driveways on the site. Those are certainly wide enough, 24 feet minimum, and safe enough to accommodate the proposed use here as well. And then as far as sight distance, the sight distance, obviously that road is pretty straight. It's roughly twice as much as the recommended sight distance required for each entrance, basically. The northbound would be 360 feet required. We're over 700 feet provided. And the southbound direction would be 305 feet and over 700 feet is provided. So that's the general gist of what the traffic report said. So I turn it back over.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the other issue was number of dogs. Was proposed to be 200. The applicant since reduced that down to 120 dogs total for the request. Third, the other issue that was raised was noise. So there was both interior coming from the building where there'd be overnight boarding and the animals would be in, and there's the exterior where there's, I guess for lack of a better term, like a play area, pen where they keep them for outside during the day. So Mr. Fuller went out and to find ways to mitigate that noise, both on the interior of the building and the exterior. Had some extensive discussions with 2 companies that handle and specialize in that kind of soundproofing, sound mitigation. And again, so I'll turn it over to Pat Fuller. He did a lot of the research, had the discussions, and
Yes.
he can speak on this.
You're ready to learn about sound. I understand the concerns of the abutters, things that were brought up at the first meeting. That's why I appreciate, Mr. Chair and members of the board, the opportunity to come back and do our due diligence in regards to doing the research and making sure we're doing the right thing for the neighborhood as well. I just want to make one note in regards to the traffic study that was done. That was also done, the flow was performed for 200 dogs. They based on 200 dogs, so with the reduction, it's even better, essentially. So I'll pop right into the, I think it was about factor 4, the neighborhood character and social structures. So the people had mentioned the exterior noise and interior noise. First, I'll touch on the interior noise. The interior noise, so there's a couple things I just want to mention when you're talking about sound. So sound can be measured in 3 different ways, in decibels, hertz, and sabins. For the fact of these studies, we will focus on decibels because that's what most everyone is familiar with. As far as sabins, the flow, the circle, there's a lot that goes into it, but for us to get through this, I think it'd be best if we talk about decibels. So the interior, for the interior location, we discussed with a industry leader called Netwell Noise Control. They're based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. They have 30, I'll just give a little background, 30 years of industry experience. They have more than 15,000 client spaces they benefited. We see them a lot on public work that we do as far as community spaces, gyms. The New Blanche James was actually one of them that utilized it. We performed a detailed room analysis and sound study based on the existing conditions and proposed use of the facility. The industry focus for interior noise is based on reverberation and echo. So that's due to the interior, basically, as we sit in here, the reverberation and echo off differing surfaces in the room. So interior analysis is done by that. After reviewing these facts based on the existing construction, the sound consultant determined that the ceiling we have already will be pretty sufficient for the sound absorption for the insulation. The walls will also absorb sound with their existing insulation, but they may likely aid in the echo and reverberation. So to mitigate this, our plan is to add sound absorbing panels along the walls. The recommended product for this is actually called VET panels, V-E-T panels. Some of that data was uploaded onto the portal as well. Additionally, to mitigate even further, the sound consultant designed suspended VET baffles to be hung from the ceiling to shorten the reverberation time even more. So these are panels you'll see sometimes in gymnasiums and in open areas where the panels hang down. That absorbs the sound that is traveling through, and it greatly reduces the transmission. Adding the VET panels on the wall surfaces only based on their study would represent a 35% reduction, although he said he doesn't think you'll hear much on the outside on the existing conditions. Adding both the VET panels and the VET panels on the wall and the VET baffles on the ceiling would represent a 65 to 70% reduction based on the interior sound. They had performed a case study. If I'm going too fast, just let me know. Okay. They had performed a case study on a franchise based out of Atlanta, Georgia called Doggaroo. The results were utilizing solely suspended VET baffle systems, and based on their performance back, it reduced it 80% of the reverberation and echo, which was an immense amount for not only the dogs, the employees, and basically for any sound that was traveling maybe outside the doors. It was basically limiting it down to nothing. So that is the interior sound. I can stop if you have any specific questions on the interior, if you want to discuss that.
If folks understand what all that means, just want to make sure the folks on the board. Basically, I mean, what the baffles is doing is it's breaking up sound waves, and they actually cancel each other out.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
All right.
It's like a seawall.
You'll see the baffles hang. So while we talk in here, you hear the echo. It would basically absorb that, and it reduces the transmission of reverberation and echo.
Mm-hmm.
Would this be covering the entire building?
So I did the sound study based on, I did it 2 ways. I did it for half the location based on where the kenneling was inside. And I said, if we're going to do it, we're going to do the whole thing. Give me data on both. And he said, you don't need to do the whole thing, but I'm telling you, we'll do the whole thing, essentially. Baffles all across the wall, panels all across the wall, VET panels and VET baffles from the ceiling as well. So we have part of that program was suspension techniques from the existing conditions we have within the open area.
Can I just ask, is that?
Sure.
So the analysis that was done by Netwell was from not at your current location or your proposed location?
This is for the proposed location of this permit. That's correct.
Okay. So, and so when you say, you're giving us a number like 65 to 75% or even, a marvelous 80% if possible. Is that something you're saying that you're willing to do? Is that where we are?
That's correct, yes. Yeah, our plan is to install those vet panels on the wall and vet baffles in the ceiling system. That's correct. Yeah.
I
I'm
just,
sorry.
one question, because I
Sure.
think you said that they, in putting together that proposal, they compared it to a facility in Georgia called Doggeroo.
So there's the case study they performed based on their product, almost like a marketing tool for them to promote this product for kennel franchise. It's a kennel franchise based out of Atlanta, Georgia. So it's multiple locations, different varying in size, large locations, small locations, and the overall reduction within all the locations that they had the case study was 80% of sound. And that was just with the acoustical vet baffles hanging from the ceiling.
I see, because
Yes.
my follow-up question was going to be, how big was the facility that they were looking at down in Georgia?
Yeah, so there were varying facilities. There were some larger facilities. I could ask that question. I know there was a couple probably within our size. There was a few hundred dogs, and then there were some smaller ones down to like canines for warriors and different things like that the Doggeroo helps out with. So it's some smaller ones, maybe 30 dogs as well.
So there were actually facilities that would be bigger than what you're proposing now?
That's correct.
Thank
Yes,
you.
you're welcome. And just so we kind of understand the decibels too that I'm talking about, the main thing they wanted to tell me was when you have, sorry, it's a couple notes here. When you basically have, let's just, for example, say an industrial location, we can say dogs, but if you had a this is what they told me, if you have a forklift emitting 87 decibels and you have a punch press emitting 89 decibels, the overall exposure would be 91. So you take 3 decibels over the loudest decibel measure. You don't combine the two, so it's 176. 180 is like 180 decibels would be significant to standing next to a rocket launcher. So all this is taken into effect as far as the number of animals and the echo and reverberation that they can reduce with this system. Interior, we're talking for now.
Okay.
Just to further clarify,
Sure.
like if I'm looking at this plan right here,
Yes.
what you're specifically talking about is going all the way around this?
So there won't be any kenneled dogs in that area. When the dogs come in the beginning, yeah. So it'll be within that larger warehouse section. Some of that other areas are
The
restrooms,
grooming employee
restrooms.
break room, that's, so basically this big rectangle right here.
That's correct. That's correct. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. With the existing construction, based on where the grooming would be, you got 10-inch insulation, corrugated steel decking, 3 dogs maybe in the grooming area. You wouldn't hear any of that outside.
Just want to make sure.
Yes, that's correct. Want me to proceed to the exterior?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Okay, so the exterior sound is a different, that Netwell Noise Control, they're industry leaders in interior noise mitigation. They have some exterior products for industrial use, but the focus we went to is a leading expert for exterior sound called Acoustablock. Acoustablock's headquarters, just a little back up, they're based out of Tampa, Florida. They were developed over 25 years ago. Their mission statement is to achieve reduction of airborne noise by 85 to 90%. They successfully experiment, test hundreds of materials, techniques, applications for acoustical solutions. Acoustablock revolutionized the building industry when it comes to sound isolation. We see this across many different industries. We're going to focus on basically the special permit we're here for today. Just to start, we're agreeing that dogs will be outside during the normal business hours only. To help mitigate these concerns, we propose to install the AcoustiFence noise reduction product on all the exterior existing chain link fencing, which is 8 feet in height. They recommend, based on their study, 6 feet is sufficient, but we have 8 feet already, so we're going to get custom rules for the 8-foot fencing. AcoustiFence is a highly effective outdoor acoustical barrier. It's a flexible material. It yields coincidental gains and attenuation at those specific frequencies where rigid barriers have strong deficiencies, such as plywood. If you were to put a plywood barrier, you're only going to make it worse, essentially. So we would secure the product to the existing 8-foot chain link fence perimeter and daycare separation location. So if you have that map, I'm sorry, Mr. Watson, Chairman Watson, you can see there's a couple locations where within the play area, there's some separation fences. That's correct. So essentially, the goal is to separate larger canines, medium-sized canines, smaller canines. And what that helps also with, which I'll get further to, is there's some research studies that say basically, that's correct. Yeah, so it'll actually be all the way around. Yes, I'm sorry, you have it. Some research studies say breaking up, different animals, different dogs into smaller groups, and also stopping the line of sight will greatly reduce the chance of them barking. It's actually called, sorry, 1 second. It's called animal conditioning. So there's some other research studies based on some things, some smaller, some different genres of music to play, separation, line of sight, and the main key are these acoustic barriers that helps mitigate the sound. So the Acoustifence has an acoustical performance sound transmission of 28, which this gives you a transmission loss of 28 decibels through the material. So that's at the first 5 feet if a dog was right next to the outboard fence, the perimeter fence, basically. So you're going to lose 28 decibels right off the bat. So with multiple levels planned to be utilized, we anticipate a significant loss in sound survival. So sound survival is more than I'd ever know about sound, but sound survival basically talks about the decibel is, they call it logarithmic. It's not linear. Yes. This simply means that every 3 decibels we move down the scale, you're dropping 50% of the remaining sound pressure levels to the exposure. And then another 50% drop in 3 decibels is the actual sound pressure. So the survival rate continues to drop 50%, 50%, 50%. That's small. That's different than the decibel loss. This is actually sound transmission loss. So I know it's a lot, but the best thing that they provided me were they gave me 4 case studies that they also did with their product. There was one done at an Iowa dog kennel. It was more of a rural area, so I don't think we need to discuss that. It was more just to control for other animals they had in that location, but they said it was an absolute game changer. There was a Delray Beach Yacht Club in Florida, which had a neighboring dog park next to the tennis courts, and it was creating an absolute nuisance. Delray put it in there. It was creating a nuisance for the yacht club members. Acoustifence was installed in the existing chain link fence to keep the noise of the barking dogs down from creating annoyance to the residents and users. The club manager stated that there have been 0 noise complaints since the Acoustifence was installed. The project was a great success. The second one, which is most pertinent to ours, is a doggy daycare, called Bark Central in Tacoma, Washington. This is an overnight boarding, grooming, and daycare facility with about 40 dogs. There was 0 neighbor complaints after the Acoustifence was installed around the perimeter, and they have 2 residences within 30 feet of that fence. They actually have a neighborhood right behind. I have a little satellite view if you'd like to see it. But so that's just, we can deep dive more into sound if you'd like, but we've done a lot of due diligence. I'm actually excited for what we had to present today, and as far as to try and mitigate the concerns of what we discussed at the last meeting.
Okay.
I have a question with respect to the outdoor area. I think the original proposal was that 50 to 60 dogs would be outside at any given time. Now that you've reduced the capacity from 200 to 120, do you expect that you'd be reducing the number of dogs that might be outside?
I wouldn't want to handcuff them and say that you couldn't have that amount outside, especially with the ability that we're going to separate them now with this acoustic barrier. That's only going to help the process. I think if you have maybe 30 little dogs and 5 big dogs, 5 medium dogs, 15 big, I think it's kind of a flow that could change. So I don't know an exact amount, to be honest with you, Ms. Carr.
The separation you just described, that's new to the proposal, is it not?
So we had it in there, but not with any sound mitigation barriers on there. We had it within the plan to show some separation of different play areas. I think to discuss when we're talking about this special permit, but talking about how it is now, we have some barriers in place in different fenced-in areas. They're kind of around the corner, but they're still line of sight. Dogs see dogs, hear dogs. They try to pee on each other. So this barrier is it's gonna be a game changer.
Okay, and the outdoor area is what was the artificial turf field, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Does the baseball field factor into this at all? There's also a baseball field that was attached to the facility before. Is that all?
So the existing conditions, as you have it here on that map, is exactly what's there today. that's the entire turf area. What I think they utilize it for a football practice area. They had a little diamond, they would play some baseball, but it was all confined within that same location.
Thank you for that clarification.
No problem.
The plan is that all the fenced-in areas in the exterior are going to have this acoustic fence on it?
That's right.
All right, just not just the border fence?
Not just the border fence.
Okay.
Doing the research, it proved to be even more successful to put them within the separation chambers as well.
Okay.
Do you have it currently at Classic Canines, or do you have any acoustic fencing or any mitigating fencing at all? So everything that the neighbors here, you're unadulterated.
So I know we're here to talk about this special permit, but since you brought it up, talking with the sound expert, what we have at the existing facility as well is concrete block walls, which is
Reverberating.
extremely reverberating with uninsulated. It's a heated space. It was a warehouse before, but no insulation in the ceilings. 12-inch block walls. It completely reverberates. Yeah. You're welcome.
How close does the dog have to be to the fence to be quieted? I'm thinking a dog's standing in the middle of it, howling and.
Yeah. So basically, where the location of the dog is from the ground, call it a larger dog. Let's just say 30 inches. The biggest. That's a big dog. So this sound transmission is based on the fact of sound immediately right at the fence. So the further they go back, the easier it's going to be for that transmission to be reduced even further. Again, I think when it's dropping exactly at the point of the fence for 28 decibels is a huge loss. I mean, it's exciting to talk to them how excited they are about the product and how good it works. I know I had discussed with them as far as our exact existing conditions, location based on 16-foot high corrugated steel panels, low slope EPDM roof, and kind of line of sight to where the neighbors were. And he was even more excited thinking about where the reverberation off the panels is going to get caught in this fencing. It's going to absorb a lot more of the sound from traveling even my way, essentially, not over the building back towards the neighbors. So it's an immense upgrade to the facility.
Last thing, do
Sure.
you happen to know, I mean, this block looks familiar, but is this the same company that installed it recently in the pickleball courts here in Union Villa, do you know? Because I think it was done for sound mitigation. I guess they did this. It looks like the same company.
It very well could be. I'm not sure to that fact, to be honest with you. I know they're a massive company. They're the leaders in this industry. So if it wasn't, it's a knockoff of somebody
We might
trying to
have
do
some
it.
successful,
Sure, yeah.
I mean, local applications. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. So on there, I just brought the case studies and projects that they had mentioned based on our special permit application, what we're looking for. They have they were chicken coops. There was different sound barriers, sporting events. It was a whole slew of industries they focus on, but I just wanted to keep it particular to us.
All right. Anybody else have any questions on the board? All right. So we'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. So what I will say is, remember that all questions are directed to me as the chair, not to the applicant directly. Please be respectful. And what we don't want is the same questions over and over and over. So we don't want to drag this on. We just want to make sure we have everybody has the opportunity to speak. And hopefully we can get your questions answered. So, yeah. So what you're going to do is, if it's your, head on up to the microphone, introduce yourself, state your name and address, and go from
Kevin
there.
Fitzgerald, I'm at 10 Janet Road, and I looked up a few things as well, and also including what we just heard tonight. So just some things that I had looked up with the Community Environmental Defense Services online, specializing in dog kennels, and they recorded at 100 decibels for every 50 feet it drops, and at 400 feet it would be 76 decibels, and the proposed outside where the dog kennel is going to go is about approximately 200 feet from where we are. The mitigation panels inside would be great. It would also be very healthy for the employees working in there, but it's really the outside that we're concerned about. So the wagging tails in Easton on 138, there's, per the health department, there's already neighbors complaining about the barking noises there, and they have mitigation panels all around their fences. Just basic physics tells us that sound waves find the path of least resistance. So you could have a 10-foot wall all around. Noise is going to go up, and I don't know how that could be controlled. Actually, it can't be. And the mitigation panel company that's very excited, of course they're going to be excited. They're about to make a big sale. So we're the ones living right next to these barking dogs. Again, I understand and I can appreciate the work that's been put in. I'm not trying to attack them, but the fact of the matter is this will absolutely ruin our peace of mind, especially on the weekends, because it's going to be open every weekend, every day, and our home equities are going to plummet. And the tax money that was brought up last time that supposedly the town is going to make more of versus the tax money that the town's going to lose when our home values drop. So I want to be respectful of not reiterating what we said last time, but those are a couple of points I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Cheryl Yodlin, and I live at
What was that? Can you speak up, please?
Cheryl
Cheryl?
Yodlin, and I
Okay.
live at 6 Janet.
Okay,
Okay, so I just have a couple of questions.
sure.
I'm a little nervous.
It's okay.
I don't usually speak in front of people.
I may come over and tackle you.
Okay.
Break the ice.
That's right.
I just want a clarification on how many dogs are going to be outside at one time.
So, fair enough question. Do we know? Good, and you didn't really have an answer because you're not the kennel owner. And did they give you any indication on what their plans were as far as?
Ask Robert.
Could I ask the kennel owner?
The
Is
owner's
that-
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if the kennel owner wants to come up and address those, that'd be fantastic.
I
Very
think,
helpful.
oh, sorry. And I think last time we had said
60.
60, yeah, at any given time with the 200 dogs, so.
Yeah, good. Come on up, sir.
Robert Katajia, he runs the business.
Right up to the microphone, please. And
Hi, I'm Robert Cottogio, General Manager at Classy Canines. I believe we came up last time with 60. I don't think that would change. I think that would be the maximum number at one time ever outside.
all right.
In all the areas completely.
Right, so that doesn't necessarily mean 60 out in one open area. That could be, there's going to be some in the smaller dogs, some in the medium dogs, some in the larger dog areas.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Can I ask more questions?
Yeah, please.
And did I hear it correctly that the facility that you have now, oh, sorry, I have to talk to you. The facility that you have now with all the dogs does not have any of this acoustic sound
Right, so
system?
they don't have any acoustic panels to reduce sound, and it's actually a very hard surface building, concrete block, no insulation up in the ceiling, so a lot more reverberation, so it will carry more.
Okay. My other question is, I don't know if this is even something that the board does. If you're thinking about giving a special permit about anything, do you visit the site to see what the noise level is, where it is, how close it is? I mean, does that factor into your decisions?
A lot of things factor into the decision. We have to look at it from perspective of homeowners in the area. And obviously, those who know me, I'm a real estate broker, so I understand values. Also, we got an applicant looking to do something that is allowed by special permit from the town, so we try and strike a balance between the two. We can't always make everybody happy. We do our best, but we do take all that into account.
So do you tour the facility?
I mean, interior of the facility, no, we haven't toured the interior of the facility. Most of us have been over there. We know exactly where it is. And I've sold condos in your community, so I know exactly where those woods are. I know where the building is.
I don't want to belabor the point, but there are other kennels in different areas, and if you drive by them and they have sound equipment, not equipment, but barriers, you can hear it very loudly. When you have a bunch of dogs together, I mean, I'm not any kind of business but this. I mean, it's going to be in the backyard. Our property values are just going to go plummet. And I just don't think that's fair. But I think I've said enough. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, you need to stand up and state your name and your address.
Michael Roush, 10 Janet. I have a question, something I'd wondered about last time, if there was any consideration. My understanding is that the kennel, I believe, closes at 6 or proposes to close at 6. And I'm wondering if there's been any discussion or consideration if at that point, I presume there'll be extensive cleanup being done. And I'm wondering if that will affect either sound or sanitary issues that will further impact upon the condos.
Right, so as far as what the applicant has stated earlier, the dogs will only be outside during business hours. So once the evening comes, they'll be inside. As far as sanitary, that's going to be handled by the Board of Health or any concerns about that. And they do have certain requirements as a kennel to remove dog waste on a regular schedule. They have to have a container on site, et cetera. So, yes, sir.
Ryan Brown, 2 Janet. First, I'd like to say I appreciate the due diligence that you guys have done. It sounds like you guys have done a lot of research. A couple questions that I have. How long until all the implementations for the soundproofing are done? And then how can we ensure that they're going to be done? Is like a 2-part question. It's my first question.
Sure, so I don't know the answer to the first one, so I'll turn that over to the applicant. But as far as the second one, we would have the ability to condition any special permit that they would not be able to operate until that's completed.
Cool.
So we can put any restriction on a special permit that we so choose. All right, do you want to try and address the first question?
Sure, I can, a rough timeline. I know there's a small waiting period after if it gets approved, and then it would be some time. We have to go, of course, some existing condition drawings. We already have a fit out for the tenant itself, and then to move the facility. So, that would be part of the construction process. So to utilize those, get that material installed, would be part of the construction process. So 6 or 8 months. Maybe 6 months. So just that's a shot from the hip.
And then my secondary question to that was, we wouldn't be operating until those things are done, correct? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 questions. Thanks.
Those are easy. I like those. Yes, sir.
Again, Michael Rout, 10 Janet. I had asked this the last time, just in terms of protocol and how the board functions. I know you'll be notifying abutters, et cetera, but how does that timeline work in terms of notification of tonight's
Well,
hearing?
so Suzanne, I'll ask you this because it's real. Like, once a decision is made, do the abutters get notified of this? Because they're notified when there's a hearing that could affect them, but do they get notified of the results of the hearing?
All the abutters on the abutter list, after the decision is filed with the town clerk in Easton, it gets mailed to all the abutters on the abutter list. That was part of the decision.
Is there a time frame after the decision?
Right. So say we had a decision tonight, and let's say it was approved. It's 30. Is it 30 days or 60 days? It's on my list. great. It is on my list. That's why I have the
Yeah.
list. But
There's a
So
while,
the-
right?
I would say it's 20.
It's a long time.
yeah, so there's a time period for people to
Filed within 90 days.
yeah, 90 days. So there's a time period for anybody to file a rebuttal or appeal, or so someone could do that if they don't agree with our decision.
And if it's not decided tonight, is there a final time frame for the board to come to
If
conclusion?
if for some reason weren't decided tonight and we would do a continuation, we would continue to the next meeting.
Okay,
So that would be in January
thank you.
at 6:40, right? That's right. If that were the case. Anybody else? Ma'am?
One question.
You can always take that mic right off.
Tracy DeBrone, 10 Janet Road. Just a quick question. If this was approved, and I agree, I appreciate all the due diligence that was done on this. But what, I guess, if it were approved and then we discover the soundproofing outside really doesn't do what we're expecting it to do, what then? What do we have any way to communicate that?
I mean, so
There-
one can always, when it comes to that stuff, you can always complain to the enforcement officer. Once we have a special permit, so a number of things we can do with a special permit. You can make a special permit for a certain time span. You can make a special permit last forever, transfer with the property, or terminate at the end of the owner's ownership period. There's a lot of things we can do. If we were going to do any sort of special conditions, we would probably consult with town council to make sure we get that right, because we don't want to put the town in a precarious position, and obviously we don't want to put townspeople in a precarious position either. If it were something that enough people were complaining, enforcement officer would go down. We don't have any sound ordinances in town that say you can't be over a certain number of decibels by a certain time period. We don't have any. So you could certainly make an amendment to change the town bylaws or town charter.
Okay.
So that there are methods, none of them are fast,
Right.
unfortunately. So that's, we have a lot to consider in that regard.
I was just curious only because, I've lived at my place since 2007 and I've lived through, Evolution Sports and the kids playing outside in the back. I am at an end unit so I have the bright lights shining into my living room and bedroom, and it was very loud. So I don't know what soundproofing that is being proposed, what that
So
really
remember,
will
so
do.
that was stuff going on at night where the lights are on, and I know the applicant has already said that the dogs won't be outside at that point in time. They'll
Well,
be
I mean,
inside.
at 4 o'clock, it's dark out.
Right now it is, certainly. yeah.
Right. And early in the morning, I usually get up earlier before the dogs start. So, yeah, I was just curious, but thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
One more follow-up. I do recall, just as a follow-up to something you raised, there was a discussion last time about lighting from the current site, and I wondered if you had any considerations for how lighting might impact the neighbors.
Sure. So the current lighting wasn't changing from the existing use as it was previously. That was approved by a plan and had gone through a special order conditions, and Concom was involved for everything where the lights are now. Certainly, the intent is not to leave the lights on all through the night to affect the neighbors. Maybe in certain times of the year they might have to be on, but I would even go through a process where we could relocate, reposition to help mitigate that glare essentially for the abutters as well. But the intent isn't to leave the exterior lights on. The intent isn't to add any extra lights. It's just how they are now. You're welcome. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Then I Entertain a motion to.
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Fullman just wanted to add one
I
thing.
didn't know if I should do it during public comment, but I meant to touch on just one other thing that was brought up. I'd skipped right over, I went right to the noise artifact, but there was a couple questions during the first meeting as well, as far as the need and about the residences and so on and so forth. If I could just touch on that, if that's okay as well?
Sure.
Okay. So there was a lot we discussed last meeting as far as, people getting dogs, especially during the pandemic. There's a lot of data out there as far as from the ASPCA about how many households, 23 million American households gained pets during the pandemic. So focusing here, the demand for kenneling in the area has significantly increased. Year over year in Easton dog licenses per the 2022 annual report has been increased year over year. Specifically 2020 to 2021, there was a 330% increase in dog licenses from 20 to 21. So the total number of dog licenses per the town report is 3,086 in the town. So just to kind of show the magnitude of the need for this type of facility, to coupled onto that, Classy Canines has a list that I didn't want to upload. I just figured we talk about today, about 915 Easton resident clients. Of that, you have about 400 existing clients. That's not, they're all coming at once, just to not scare numbers, but that may have come grooming, may come at once a month or so on and so forth. And of that, that leaves 505 potential clients that may come over and ask for the services that they're not able to entertain any more clients. So that just speaks to the need within the community. They can't fulfill it. They're forced now to maybe go to smaller kennels in town or going to other areas, other kennels in surrounding towns. So we like to, this will help keep some of that business and the need within the community. And then last piece was, it was uploaded as well. I'm not sure if the board saw it, but the animal control officer has uploaded a letter of support just to describe kind of what she's up against as far as some of the emergency services and the ability to kennel overnight dogs and the help that we can give to her as well with the tenant. So don't want to go too far on it, but I know we discussed that last time about the actual need for the town. We just pulled some data on that. I just want to speak on behalf of, I know you're a real estate agent, Jim Cook. I don't want to get into real estate. I've contacted multiple real estate agents. Nobody could give me a study performed for specifically a kennel. Of course, loud noises in a neighborhood does affect the home price. I will not argue that. Especially just look at, train stations. If you're right next to a train station, obviously the value is a little different. But again, our intent is not to devalue your homes or make you miserable being in your homes. We're trying to do everything we can to hopefully get this approved so it can benefit everyone, the community and the abutters as well.
Okay. All right. Now.
I got is there any other businesses going on at the site? Is there gonna be a retail store or?
Nothing like that.
Not like just the grooming?
That's correct. It'll be the daycare, grooming, and boarding overnight. That's correct, sir.
And one last one, if the permit is granted and you were to make the switch, so after the 6 or whatever month period, is that gonna be a one-shot deal, so there's not partial business at either side?
The intent would to be once a certificate of occupancy after all the building construction was done, as far as doing some interior fit outs, would be to move the business at once. Everything would move over there. That's correct.
And will it still be under the name, will it still be Classy Canines or?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman, yes. Sure.
Would a fence on the residential side, on the opposite side of the retention pond, would that help with the sound or the viewing or the noise?
I'd be all for adding another fence. I think we'd run into some issue with Concom on the other side of the retention pond.
It's all wet over there,
Yeah.
and it's not their
Yeah,
land.
so I think where we have the existing, where I think you probably heard most of the noise was the basketball court that's off towards the back. So that's completely around the side of the building. That will be wrapped as well, but the intent is to keep them in the large play area with all the acoustic fence around the perimeter and in the separation. I would be amenable to it, but I don't think they'll let me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know, when I viewed the property, I didn't know where the exact boundary was.
Yeah, the 100-foot buffer line actually runs through the building, so to put a fence even further on the property, I don't think it would be possible. Yeah.
Are we asking questions, or are we still on public?
You can go ahead and ask a question.
I'd be recognized by the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
You'll have to, I apologize if was run over before. I watched the video on the hearing, but I wasn't here last time, so I wasn't able to really take detailed notes. Mr. Chair, it's the first I heard of it. There are no restrictive, no defined sound limits in town
That
for
is correct.
decibel levels?
That is correct.
How many complaints is the existing facility received over the last 5 years or so?
We did research for the past 10 years, and there wasn't one complaint.
Okay. And just to clarify, I know going over the same thing that we just went over, but you'd be open to adjusting the lighting?
Definitely, yes. And just that clarification on the noise complaints, I just went through the Easton police logs as far as like a call.
Yep.
We asked them if they had seen anything.
I think that's the only thing you can do.
Okay.
And just one last thing for now, I'm kind of scattered about. You undoubtedly have done a lot of research in noise abatement. In your opinion, is this the best noise abatement available?
I can confidently say yes, Chairman Watson. So both of these are leaders in the industry.
Who's chairman?
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Just say Ed.
I'm sorry. My apologies. Yes, these are both leaders in the industry as far as Acoustic Block has over 400 UL listings, so they're pretty much they are the leader in exterior noise absorption and abatement. And as far as the interior, they are as well.
Okay. I think.
One of the, I apologize, let me
No, go ahead.
One of the sales pitch, they were excited, not based on a big sale. I'll be honest. I mean, it is an additional cost. I can share confidently. It's probably with installation around 50 grand, which is a big cost. But that's labor to put it up, machines to go in there, engineering for the panels. The actual product they're fairly cost effective. So that's why I was actually excited myself to be able to not only help the interior dogs themselves, the employees, but also to help mitigate the exterior sound to the abutters.
Okay, as long as we're talking I did take a few notes. In my notes here from the video of the last meeting, it said a 6-foot chain link fence, but you're telling me it's 8?
I think originally it was a mistake.
Okay.
And it was confirmed 6 foot, but it's actually 8 foot. I couldn't say anything because I was in the public side last time.
Okay. I don't know if you want to move on, but I'm just, like I said, I'm
No problem,
putting
man.
together
No
a
problem
lot
at
of
all.
different things
Rather
here.
talk about it.
And you had confirmed you're going down to 120. I don't think I have anything further, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, one last call. All right.
Mr. Chair, and
Sorry.
just to be, we just wanted to be clear, I know some of these numbers were thrown around. So they were looking for the 120 dogs for the daycare and the overnight. Currently, their permit has unlimited grooming. They say it's around 20 to 30 dogs a day that would be coming in for the grooming, but they'd like to maintain that no limit on the grooming. But in reality, it doesn't get above 30 from what Mr. Calagio said. And again, the hours we were looking was,
Sorry,
I just want to be sure.
yeah.
Was 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Currently,
Yes.
it's 6:30 a.m. to 7.
7 p.m., yes.
So we were making that basically a reduction on that end. So just want to be clear for the record, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I'll looking for a motion to close the hearing.
I'll move to close the hearing.
Okay,
Seconded.
seconded, Mr. Watson. Okay, all those in favor of closing the hearing? All right, it's 5-0. So, just so everyone in the public understands, it's close of all public comments, et cetera, okay? All right, who wants to start? Or, go ahead, Jean.
Are you looking at me? I just, my thought was that I visited the site a couple of times. I tried to go when I could open my windows and sit for a while. I think there's some lovely homes nearby, and we certainly have some residential properties that I think had to be taken into consideration. And I would kind of say that I commend the applicant for coming up with, going right to the nut of it, which is the fourth consideration, and that would be the impact on the abutting zone. And I believe that a lot of that has been addressed. I felt that my interpretation of the meeting last time was that noise was the chief concern. There was a kind of pollution, certainly light was one of them. The traffic has been addressed. So from the things that I was really dreading and having to face without having any mitigating steps taken, from my standpoint, has been addressed. I would just ask, just to consider, I think we were talking about, I'm not maybe familiar enough with the bylaw, but I think under performance standards, section 23550, that does address noise, generally, like not
general.
10,
It's not
10
specific.
dB above the ambient. Okay,
Yeah.
that's all. And I didn't really, I felt that the DB, we were given something kind of review that was talking about noise versus loudness versus intensity, that kind of thing. But I'm not sure that that's really the issue. I don't think the decibels is the issue. We have human ears and animal dogs that are making choices about making noise, and I think our sensitivity to them changes. But I do feel that to the extent that they could be addressed, they were. I was pleased that the numbers were reduced significantly. And having seen the site, I could hear the dogs, but I was wondering, even as I was hearing the applicant describe how the mitigating factors might help, because you get the sense that there were things, the noise was reverberating off of structures and vehicles. So I felt that there were a lot of steps taken to mitigate that. So my concern again was the noise that having done something.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Yep. Ron, you got anything?
Just one comment. As I looked at the plan, everything behind the building, if you call the residence the front, excuse me, and as long as nothing is in the back of the building, it would seem that the sound would be contained between the fences and the building as best that it can be.
Yeah, there's no perfect solution where it's going to be perfectly quiet. We understand that.
No,
Right.
I'm surprised that my neighbors haven't complained about my little dog.
Ed, you got anything?
Yeah, I was just kind of looking at all the criteria of the special permit. I think that, you know, between the traffic study and the sound study, I think in your words and my words is you've really done the best noise abatement proposal that you could. I know a little bit about noise abatement, and I'm familiar with similar products, and they do work. When you address the criteria of a special permit, and our job, I think, is to follow the bylaws. The social, economic, and community needs is certainly been proven, the traffic flow and safety, by the study you guys have already done. And I know that area really well. It's not a difficult, I don't see that being an issue. Utilities and public services don't appear to be an issue. Impacts on the national environment don't appear to be an issue. And potential fiscal impact doesn't appear to be an issue. The hanging up a little bit on the neighborhood character and social structure, and I don't think there's any better way for you to try to address that?
Meaning what?
I don't see any other noise abatement products or,
Unless you put a dome over the whole place.
I don't see anything being realistically available.
Right.
So I guess that's about it.
Okay.
I mean, what I would say is that from the last hearing to this one, the major issue was the noise issue. And it seems like you've taken extraordinary steps to try to minimize the amount of noise that would be emanating from your facility. It's impossible to make it so that there's zero. I mean, and if it's not dogs, something else might go in there that might be equally as noisy, without perhaps the noise abatement that you've proposed. I think you've shown a lot of consideration to the neighborhood, and you've tried to address their concerns. So from that perspective, I think a lot of the other requirements of the special permit, except for maybe the traffic flow, we pretty much covered at the last hearing. I mean, and so from that perspective, I think short of building a fence that's 25 feet high with noise abatement, I think that you've done the best that you could under the circumstances to minimize the impact on the neighborhood by having 120 dogs barking at once, if that's the way it happened. But I mean,
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say.
Okay. I'm just looking through, zoning bylaws, table of use regulations, the types of businesses that could be there. And there are a lot of different types of businesses, between retail, consumer establishments, restaurants, who some of those that operation would continue to happen in the evening, and wouldn't likely be putting any sort of sound mitigation strategies in place. Then the important thing, like, as you step through the special permit and you look through social economic community needs, how many kennels have we had come to us in the last year, either applying for new kennels or looking to expand? And that's because there is definitely a need. 2 dogs in my house alone, but I work from wherever and take my dog with me. But most people don't have that flexibility. Traffic flow is not a non-issue. There's adequacy of utilities is pretty much a non-issue. The dogs aren't flushing toilets and stuff like that, although it'd be interesting to teach them. Impacts on natural environment. I mean, they're contained to an area. It's astroturfed, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, it's all astroturfed. Fiscal impact, and the business already exists and is already paying taxes in town. So I see that as a net negative. It's a matter of the neighborhood character and social structures, and that's the thing that's impossible to truly evaluate. Looking at property, and we're evaluating property, sure, no studies on it, but when we evaluate property, you do definitely evaluate what is surrounding the property. Just as the same as you look if a property has wetlands, if it has a heavy construction company next door, that has a negative impact as well. So, all right, I think we've talked this one out. Does anybody want to make a recommendation?
I will. I recommend that we approve the special permit, that it be approved with the conditions of the capacity being 120 dogs, that all of the noise mitigation systems that have been discussed tonight be included as a condition in the special permit.
About grooming, maximum number of dogs of 30, hours of operation. You want to
Yeah,
include that as
I
well?
guess, I thought maybe that was covered originally, but yes, I mean, I think hours of operation would be 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., and the grooming be limited to 30.
Okay. Was there in here anywhere max capacity for overnight? Is that in the maximum number of dogs overnight?
So it was to match the 120.
For overnight?
Yes. Yeah, there was a need for over 200, but the thing about the overnight too is the overnight you're not going to hear anything. So it's almost like if I could keep talking, I don't know if I'm okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm the one asking for
Okay,
clarification.
okay. So the interior, the overnight, I mean, the amount of dogs you have in there being separated with all the noise mitigation on the inside is not going to be a factor to anybody. So I think that's that aspect could be whatever you see fit. We would take as much as possible on that.
Sure.
Because that's really an aspect of the business for holidays, travels, night workers, so on and so forth, emergency response people. So that's a fact that we would accept as much as possible. Again, I think the biggest thing was the exterior dogs, the amount of daycare dogs, essentially.
Yeah.
We would like at 120.
Because I believe the original proposal was for, with the capacity at 200.
75.
75, yeah.
Right, but what they had mentioned in my notes was that down to 60. So maximum of 60 dogs.
No, Mr. Chairman, it was my notes from last week was.
No, they said it tonight.
It's 75 to be boarded.
Oh, 75 to be boarding.
Yes, sir.
I got you, thank you.
That was my notes from last.
Well,
time.
that's why I was
It wasn't
asking
120, but it was.
if it
That's-
was in the application.
My
That's
understanding
what I
was
had
to be
written
boarded
down.
was the overnight.
Was 75, is what they were proposing.
That was with
During
200
daycare and
dog.
groom is 200?
That
So-
was with the 200 dog limit.
Yeah,
Is it,
Now we're down to 120 dogs.
right.
right, but is the proposal for overnight boarding still at 75?
No, according to,
No, they would like,
She's
I mean, he's
saying,
asking
yeah,
for as much as
120.
possible, obviously. It doesn't mean we have to agree to any of that. Yeah, there's nothing in this initial application that talks about the maximum number of boarding, just 200 dogs during daycare and grooming. And there's nothing about boarding. So they may have said 75 last time, they said 60 this evening.
I don't know, I think the overnight now is the same as the capacity, 120.
Well, no, I understand that.
Yeah,
I
yeah, okay.
understand that.
No.
But I'm saying, originally, during discussion, what was that, I'm sorry, 60 dollars maximum broken up.
You know, it's outside, correct?
Yeah,
Yes,
60 outside.
okay. All right, so I've been taking notes, so just to make sure, so what you're proposing is recommending the special approval, hours of operation 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., 120 dog capacity, maximum number of dogs outside at any one time is 60. All noise mitigation systems must be installed as a condition of occupancy, and maximum number of dogs at any one time for grooming is 30. And are you suggesting 120 dog capacity for boarding as well?
I didn't even consider that. I think that might have been a little bit of ambiguity in terms
really,
of.
they didn't define what they were looking for as far as boarding.
Right. No, I think that especially with the steps that they're taking to
The
mitigate
sound
noise inside, I don't think that I think that a 120 dog limit for overnight boarding would be acceptable.
Chairman, may I ask for clarification on?
Yeah, please.
So, but also I think my notes from last time were that the overnight dogs at 75, there was also consideration that there would be a limit. We're going down from about 30 employees. We didn't discuss that.
That's what I was
this
looking for, a number of
30
employees in the
employees,
evening.
12 to 15 at a time. And that if they're now going to be more, what is that, twice, a lot more dogs spending the night, so not quite twice, but if they're going to be,
Right, because I think the
Okay,
discussion from last time, I thought they were going to be 2 employees.
Two.
In the nighttime. But it's 2, well, I mean, in the end, that's a business decision for the operator. That's not for us to say how many employees they need to
I
have on
understand,
site.
because I was thinking about keeping it, just in case, I don't know if it takes another person to walk through and tell the dog, if that matters in terms of noise or other issues that.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you on that. All right, so the proposal we have,
Okay, so I'll try to restate this.
Okay.
I move to approve the special permit, the hours of operation, subject to hours of operation of 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., a maximum capacity of 120 dogs, a maximum of 60 dogs in the outdoor area at any given time. All noise mitigation systems that have been submitted for our consideration be installed before the business could operate, that the limit on grooming would be 30 dogs, and as far as the overnight boarding, 120 dogs.
okay, so that is the point for the board. Do you have a second on that? Or do you have an alternate?
Can we amend it?
Well, you can amend it, but then we still have to vote on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so hold on, let me, proposed amendment. Okay, sir?
Okay, I'd like to just add that the outside dogs would be limited to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay.
As opposed to 6 a.m. to 6:30.
6:30.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how that could be an issue. I mean, but
Mr. Chairman, I do see possibly an issue. Is that something that I can raise at this point in discussion with the amendment? And that might be that if the hours of operation are already at 6:30, that means that we have, let's say that folks are going to work and 80% of the 120 dogs are going to be dropped off at those hours. That means no dogs can go out for an hour and a half. So what we have then is all 120 dogs with no relief to let the dogs outside for an hour and a half. I'm not sure what that, I mean, unless you're
right,
thinking of just addressing noise.
but overnight, there's going to be 120 dogs inside the facility. I mean, maybe you think that needs to be reconsidered. Kennel,
They're in
but
their own cages, kennels, whatever you call them.
right.
I
mean, I don't- are we-
purview to change it?
Aren't we
Companies
Change what?
Change the operating hours of a,
Well, they're
Business.
proposing an hours of operation. We can add any restriction we feel is appropriate.
okay, even when it's written in the special permit, we can change it?
Correct. We're not held to that. We're
Okay.
the authority to decide what we want to decide.
Okay.
So,
I guess I don't know anything about dogs. If on a day like today, who wants to have their dog running around at 6:30 in the morning when it's 20 degrees out? I don't. think that that's, you know what I mean? We can't, I'm not sure that we can get into that level of micromanaging how they're going to run the operation.
Well, I mean, we can. I mean, that's certainly within our right.
Yeah.
Does it make sense is the question. And does, are
Okay,
we arbitrarily picking times, or is there a sound reason behind it? They say, well, but most of the residents, up until 8 a.m., they're going to be, trying to head out to work, and then once 8 a.m. comes, they're off. Kids are off on the bus to head to school. Maybe it's the reasoning behind it is, the residents' peace and quiet up until the point that they are heading out to work.
Right.
I don't know how a kennel operates. I've never kenneled my dogs, so I don't know how, do they get in and then the dogs are just outside running around, burning off dog energy? I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I meant what I said. I don't know.
Hell, I moved my mom in so she could walk the dogs all the time.
All right. Well,
My thinking was just in case there is outside noise, it's limited to those more normal business hours.
right.
And that's not abnormal. I mean, we've had other kennels in here discuss how they have restrictions on when the dogs need to be coming in to reduce noise nuisance to the surrounding neighbors. So
Right.
it's not without precedent. Not that precedent matters, but
Right. I think there was one facility where they were actually going out and picking up the dogs and bringing them back. That was
Correct.
part of the service. that
try,
they
try and, well, yeah, I mean, yes.
All right. So, I mean,
So right now before us is Mr. Hanberger's proposal to limit dog time outside from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
okay. All right.
And of course,
Then-
you could just amend your proposal as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you must be a mind reader. I was trying to figure out whether I need to just amend the proposal or just say that my proposal with his amendment is acceptable. If you want me to restate that, then I will.
It's whatever, as long as Suzanne can properly document it.
Okay. So the motion that I'll now put before the board would be to approve the special permit, the hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., capacity of 120 dogs, maximum number of dogs outside at any given time set at 60, maximum number of dogs that can be brought in for grooming would be limited to 30. The maximum capacity for overnight kenneling would be 120. All the noise mitigation systems that have been
As submitted.
with those conditions, I would move to approve the special permit.
Okay.
With, I don't know if I said this, that the hours of outdoor operation would be 8 to 5.
Okay. All right, so that is a proposal. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a second. Any further discussion? Jean?
Just, again, if this is just about noise, is the idea, would there be any thought of maybe, if this is a permit that we're leaning toward granting, any thought of maybe restricting, instead of 60 dogs outside, to have some minimum number so that in case there are dogs that just need to arrive and be out or be separated or to go out, I don't know how they're processing relieving themselves or whatever, but a dog that's just arriving, that they could cycle maybe just a few dogs out at a time. So we're not looking to police, gee, it's 8 o'clock, there's a dog outside. I would just think that these seem like kind of arbitrary numbers for me, especially in the middle of summer where it's not dark until after 9. We've got, I know that the dogs wouldn't be I mean, not out during nighttime hours, but those shift. And it just seems to me that there should be some relief. The hours seem arbitrary to me. I don't know when people go to work or when they come back. I can understand, having visited the lovely neighborhoods next door, that these folks would like to have as little time with the dogs inside as possible, but I don't know that, I'm not enough of a dog person to know whether or not there would maybe relieve some of the tensions by allowing some dogs to be outside, some dogs to be inside. So there might be less barking. So it just seems to me to be a bit arbitrary to have those numbers. And I wondered if you think in your proposal that there might be something that's a part way where you have fewer dogs out, instead of 60 dogs outside first thing in the morning, that
Correct.
you just have maybe 10 or 20 dogs outside, but at least allow the owner the flexibility to make some choices as dogs get acclimated with one another, and in case there's, some that need to be outside for a little time out or something.
Yeah, so what you're proposing is a different proposal. So we can, since that'd be a new proposal on the table, we would need to address it. Then we would need to come back to the current one that has a second.
Okay, I think I was just trying to understand, I beg your pardon, I did morph into that, but I was just trying to understand where 8 and 5 came from. This is, I mean, I do appreciate that it's a nod to neighbors who've been concerned. I'm just not sure what the meaningfulness of those numbers is.
So are you suggesting that the dogs could be outside anytime between 6:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. and 6:30 p.m.?
Well, I'm trying to separate, as a chairman suggested, that I'm not going to present anything else at this point, but I'm just asking kind of where the 8 to 5 came from.
Mostly
In
'cause-
thinking that maybe I would propose, after you may have the discussion about this, that I would propose an amendment to allow some relief, to have some dogs, not all 60, but to have some dogs outside when business starts. I don't quite understand why we
It's
restricted to
really,
zero.
I mean, the restriction, from my perspective, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's really consideration for the neighbors to have some peace and quiet before
Okay.
the day gets going. And then once most people are headed off to work, kids are off to school,
Okay.
out they go. And then basically as folks are starting to get dinner ready, to be able to have some peace and quiet again before
I see. All
the
right.
chaos.
Thank you, that makes sense. Thank you.
So, okay. So not another proposal on the
No,
table?
no,
Okay.
I'm just trying to
So
understand
we
where
have
the
a
numbers
first,
are
we have a second, so we have before us motion right now. So all those in favor, we'll do it by hand vote. All those in favor of approving the proposal, the amended proposal, all those in favor? That's a 5-0, so that's that. So how long before? It's 21 days? Yeah, okay. That's that. So we're all set at this point.
Okay, appreciate your time.
Thanks,
So,
Jim.
Thank you very much
everybody.
for all the efforts.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Get your dog.
Oh, yeah, that's right. All right. All right, so we have a couple other business items to address.
Yeah, I think Suzanne gave me the,
Okay, that'll come around for us to sign.
no date, just sign your name. You need a pen?
No, sir. I do. I have one.
Okay, so the 2024 meeting schedule, right on the front of your binder. Does anybody have any challenges with that?
My only challenge is that if my travel plans pan out the way I want, I'll be coming back from a trip to Ireland on July 8th, so I might be completely jet lagged. And I don't know how much time I will have to review things, but I can be here on the 9th.
That's why we have alternate members.
That's why
too.
you have alternates. I get you back, bro.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Don't worry about
okay.
it. You go have fun in Ireland.
So,
I'll hold the fort.
all right, so 2024 meeting schedule, as proposed, anybody want to make a recommendation?
I recommend that it be accepted.
We have-
Seconded.
All right, seconded by Mr. Watson. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's 5-0. All right, so I had sent around, is that in the binder, Suzanne?
First page.
Okay. Just right on the first, should be the first page. So a couple of procedural items. So when a member recuses him or herself, he or she should leave the table. While leaving the room is not required, it is good practice. But as a citizen of town, you have the right to continue to sit in as a member of the public. During public hearings, non-voting members can ask questions, but only during the public question period. So I want to make sure, because that was something confusing that came up a couple meetings ago. Non-voting members need to raise his or her hand, be recognized, announce your name and address, just as any other citizen in town would have to during the public comment period, and pose the question to the chair and not the applicant. And then when a board member misses one session of a public hearing, the public hearing is continued to the next meeting. The board member is eligible to vote at the continued hearing if the member completes a Mullen Rule form, which includes watching and recording the public hearing. The administrative assistant will send out the Mullen Rule form and a link to the recording, which is, you completed that to be able to participate in this.
I did.
All right, so that is just something I wanted to go over for clarification to make sure we all understood. And then review and approval of the minutes from the October 24th meeting. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
No, I don't.
Move to accept as read.
Mr. Watson makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Very good. Oh, you're ready to vote already? Awesome. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 5-0. Fantastic. All right, do we make a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Fantastic. Second, Mr. Hamburger. Beat you to it. All those in favor? That's 5-0. Thank you, everyone. Tough one. I appreciate everyone, keeping that discussion open. You want to pass that down to Suzanne, please? Probably some unhappy neighbors in there, but I think the applicant did an awful lot to address the concerns they had.
I just feel, don't know how I'd feel if I was a resident, but I just feel that